Have you ever wondered why the city of Athens isn't called Poseidonia? This is a city whose future would be defined by its legendary navy and bustling sea trade. So why isn't it named for the god of the sea? The answer lies in a legendary showdown, a divine contest for the soul of what would become the world's most famous city. It's a story that pits raw, untamable power against quiet, life-giving wisdom. In this corner, you have the mighty Poseidon, lord of the seas, who offered a gift of shock and awe. And in the other, the goddess Athena, who offered a simple tree that would change history forever. This isn't just the story of how Athens got its name. This is the story of how the mighty Poseidon suffered his greatest defeat. Not by a rival army, but by the simple, profound wisdom of an olive tree. Long ago, in the age of heroes, a magnificent new city rose in the sun-drenched land of Attica. The sun-scorched plains stretched out, the earth parched and cracked like a thirsty giant's tongue. It was a place of gleaming white stone and immense potential, but it was missing one thing: a patron god. In ancient Greece, a patron was your city's champion on Mount Olympus, the divine source of its identity. And this particular city caught the eye of two very powerful and very different deities. First, there was Poseidon, brother of Zeus, ruler of all the world's waters. He was the earthshaker, the stormbringer, a god with a notoriously short fuse and terrifying power. His temper was as unpredictable as the sea itself, 1 minute calm, the next a raging hurricane. Armed with his trident, he could crack the earth open and whip the oceans into a frenzy. Poseidon was a god of action and impulse, used to getting his way through sheer force. Poseidon was a god of action and impulse, used to getting his way through sheer force. He saw this city and pictured a great naval empire built in his name. His rival was a different force entirely, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, strategy, and civilization. Her birth alone tells you a lot about her. She sprang fully formed and in full armor from the head of her father, Zeus. Where Poseidon was all chaos and emotion, Athena was calm, calculating, and deliberate. She wasn't the goddess of mindless slaughter. She was the goddess of the brilliant tactics that win a war with minimal bloodshed. She was the patron of heroes who used their brains, like Odysseus. In this new city, she didn't see a naval base. She saw a future beacon of learning, law, and culture, a place where wisdom would be the highest virtue. The stage was set. Untamable sea versus the ordered city. Brute force versus strategic intellect. With both gods laying their claim, Zeus knew a direct fight would be a catastrophe. So, he decreed the matter would be settled not by force, but by a contest. The city's king was a fascinating figure named Cecrops. The legends say he was born directly from the earth itself, with the upper body of a man and the lower body of a serpent, symbolizing his deep, unbreakable connection to the land he ruled. He was known for his wisdom, having taught his people about marriage, law, and civilized society. He was the perfect mortal judge for a divine squabble. So, under the watchful eye of Olympus, the terms were set. On the high rocky hill of the Acropolis, Poseidon and Athena would each present a single gift to Cecrops and his people. The gift deemed most useful, most beneficial for the city's long-term prosperity, would win its creator eternal patronage. The city would bear the winner's name forever. The stakes couldn't have been higher. This was a battle for the city's very soul. Would its future be defined by the thunderous might of the ocean, or by the quiet cultivation of the land? The day of the contest arrived, and all of Attica held its breath. Poseidon, who was never one for subtlety, went first. He strode to the center of the Acropolis, radiating raw power. He raised his mighty trident, and with a triumphant roar that sounded like a crashing wave, he brought it down. Behold, mortals, he bellowed, his voice shaking the very foundations of the hill. A token of my ocean's boundless power. With this, you shall forge empires and command the world. The crack of his trident against the rock wasn't just a sound. It was a shattering thunderclap that tore through the very air. The ground groaned from its depths, a visceral tremor that knocked people off their feet. The rock split open, and from the fissure, a spring of water burst forth, sparkling in the sun. The crowd gasped. Water. In this dry land, what could be a more precious gift? People rushed forward to taste the miracle. But as the liquid touched their lips, their faces fell. The excited murmurs turned to cries of disgust. The water was salty. It was seawater. Poseidon, in his pride, hadn't given them the gift of life. He'd given them a symbol of his own domain. His gift was a promise of naval power, a connection to his mighty oceans. But you can't drink seawater. You can't water crops with it. A civilization cannot be built on brine. The spring, which would later be revered as a sacred relic, was a monument to Poseidon's power. But it was a flawed solution that offered no real sustenance. The god of the sea had shown his strength, but he had also shown a critical lack of understanding. The crowd fell silent. The stage was now set for Athena. Now, it was Athena's turn. There was no earth-shattering spectacle, no thunderous roar. In stark contrast to Poseidon's explosive display, her approach was one of quiet confidence. She watched the people, not with arrogance, but with the deep certainty of one who plays the long game. She walked forward, knelt down, a gesture of cultivation, not conquest, and gently planted the tip of her spear into the soil. Before their astonished eyes, a different kind of miracle unfolded. A shoot emerged from the ground. It grew quickly, its branches unfurling, its silvery green leaves shimmering in the light. Within moments, a full, mature olive tree stood on the rock of the Acropolis, its branches heavy with dark, rich fruit. The crowd's murmur this time was one of deep appreciation. Athena's gift wasn't a fleeting spectacle. It was a living promise for the future. She turned to them, her voice calm and clear. "Power can be given," she said, "but true prosperity must be cultivated. This tree is but the first seed. Your wisdom will make it grow." She explained the tree's true value. The olives would provide a constant source of food, but the real magic was olive oil. This liquid gold would become the lifeblood of their society. It would be used for cooking, to fuel their lamps and push back the darkness, to anoint their bodies for hygiene and sport, and to create perfumes and sacred medicines. The wood from the tree could build their homes and tools. More than that, the olive branch was a symbol of peace and prosperity. Athena's gift was one of harmony and long-term thinking. It was a gift that required care and patience, the very virtues of an ordered society. It wouldn't just provide for them for a day. It would provide for them for generations. She didn't just give them a thing, she gave them a future. The choice before King Cecrops was now crystal clear. On one hand, Poseidon's gift, a dramatic display of power that was fundamentally useless for their daily lives. On the other, Athena's gift, a quiet miracle that offered food, fuel, prosperity, and peace. The decision wasn't hard. Led by their wise king, the people chose the olive tree. The decision wasn't hard. Led by their wise king, the people chose the olive tree. Cecrops stood and declared Athena the winner. A huge cheer erupted. Their city had its patron, and she had already proven her worth. And so, in her honor, the city was named Athens. But one Olympian was not cheering. Poseidon stood in stunned silence. His pride was shattered. He, the mighty lord of the seas, had been defeated. Not in a grand battle, but by a mortal king's choice and by a tree. The humiliation was absolute, a shame as biting as the salty waters of his own domain. His raw power had been deemed less valuable than the quiet, patient gift of his niece. His shock quickly curdled into a furious, divine rage. This was not a loss he would accept gracefully. For a god known for his legendary temper, this was an insult that demanded revenge. Poseidon's fury was as vast as the oceans he commanded. Refusing to accept defeat, he unleashed a terrible curse. In a bitter, ironic punishment, the very fresh water they craved was denied them. He sent a monstrous flood to inundate the plains of Attica, raging salt-sprayed wave of his bitter tears. In other versions, he cursed Athens with a perpetual scarcity of fresh water, a constant, nagging reminder of the power they had dismissed. His tantrum only proved that the Athenians had made the right choice. A patron is supposed to protect you, not punish you for disagreeing with them. But the Athenians were clever. To appease the enraged god, they built one of the most unique temples in all of Greece on the Acropolis, the Erechtheion. This beautiful temple was a masterful act of diplomacy, dedicated to both Athena and Poseidon. Inside, it protected the city's most sacred relics, a saltwater well said to be the very spot where Poseidon's trident struck, and just outside grew a sacred olive tree, a descendant of the one Athena had planted. It was a way to honor the victor while still paying respect to the formidable power of the vanquished. The legacy of that contest shaped Athens forever. The city became synonymous with the values Athena's gift represented: wisdom, art, and democracy. The olive tree became the foundation of the Athenian economy and a core symbol of its identity. Athens did not just choose a goddess that day, it chose an ideal. It chose the patience of the farmer over the plunder of the pirate, the light of the olive oil lamp over the darkness of the deep sea. This story was told and retold, a foundational myth that reinforced the ideal that wisdom will always triumph over brute force. It taught that true strength isn't about overpowering others, but in cultivating a society that can flourish in peace. In the end, Poseidon's greatest defeat wasn't just losing the contest. It was his failure to understand what makes a civilization truly great. His gift was a mirror, reflecting his own power. Athena's was a window, showing the people their own potential. She offered them a future they could build themselves. Poseidon's defeat reminds us that the greatest force in the universe isn't the power to destroy, but the wisdom to create. And that is a lesson that echoes far beyond the shores of ancient Attica. But what do you think? Was the olive tree really the better gift? Or could the promise of unrivaled naval power have led Athens down an even greater path? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy diving into epic tales from mythology, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story.